I am so tired of this. I sit in your class every week, and I'm just. We're live. Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, you're not the only one who's tired of it, buddy.
So you're insulting.
No, I'm just
he's
optimistic that he's going to say
he's
something.
Insulting students now. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, usually he doesn't do that to your face.
Exactly, he doesn't. He only does it when I'm not looking.
Your face.
Yeah. He only does it when I'm not looking. Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah. Well, you should see when you turn your back in class. He's like,
I know he wants to do that when I'm not looking.
Yeah.
Well, there are days.
Are there really?
Sometimes there's moments.
Sometimes it's hours. Sometimes many times during the day.
All day. My wife's like, "What are you doing?" You have no idea.
All right, before we get too out of control, so we are here for
tell the world
5.
Just who we are. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. You were going to say you were going to check a little bit.
No, but I'm good. Go ahead. That was a little too old for a lot of these young people who watch us.
Yeah.
Well,
Definitely. You're an old man. That's mine.
Yes.
But so here, this is episode 5, off the cuff, and we're trying something new this week. Going to see how it works, but we're live on Facebook now.
There we go.
And so the good news is that we're able to get like some little identity stuff. So look across the bottom.
So if you like anything that I say, just hit the heart button.
Yeah,
and we'll see it.
Yeah.
And if you dislike anything that Professor Crocker says, hit the dislike button or just say I dislike it. And it works too.
I love the shocking face.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I can't believe you said that.
We expect this to be used politically for people's gain, by some foreign government or
we're
business.
Going to compare, who gets more like. We'll watch back and see because it shows you on Facebook. Like when people do the liking, it shows you like during the time like engagement.
Yes.
So we're going to be comparing who gets the most
likes.
Yes. And it has nothing to do with the stories. We're just going to see it's all about the individuals.
Yes. All about our personalities. Yeah.
So that's going to be the thing. So that'll be good, and then we'll upload it live after the archive to YouTube. So it'll still be available there. It's still going to be on the website, morethancake.org/off-the-cuff. And so that's still, the archives are there and on the YouTube channel. But we're just going to try this and see how it works and see how the live thing goes. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Forward to trying a new venue for it and seeing it, because I think we'll get
consider this liked from me.
Yes. Well, thank you. If you could go on there now,
and like it, you would like it.
Matter of fact, you could go on and do it. Except maybe it'll make noise and make sure your volume's on, so it doesn't get like some kind of weird feedback thing.
You could turn your volume on because I'd love people to hear your ringtone.
Maybe actually I'll go whenever Ward starts talking. I'm going to go grab my phone
and like Ward,
and it's just like
Oh, nice.
During it. So, all right. Well. We are live. So, what are the stories, man, going on? I know we talked about some stuff earlier the other day that we thought might come back to life.
Before we really get down the road.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've said, and I think I even said it today, was if you can't distinguish between Tide Pods and food, you probably shouldn't be telling us what to do with guns, right?
That's probably a good first step.
Right.
That's a good rule of general, clean rule of
the college student that swallowed a Tide Pod.
Yeah, and
went to the hospital. So clearly college is not working out for him, is what you're saying.
Yeah. So there's this one NBA basketball player. His name is Jordan Clarkson, and he plays for the Lakers.
He's a Lakers dude.
Phenomenal young basketball player.
Yeah,
totally.
My son likes his.
Yeah. Incredible game. But
was he the one traded from Cleveland?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, he was the one that came over from Cleveland.
But we can appreciate his basketball acumen, but his historical, prehistorical, evolutionary, whatever you want to call it, acumen, we probably shouldn't go with. I'm just saying. They were on. He and his teammate Larry Nance Jr. were on a podcast.
See, it is.
Why would you do that?
Turn the volume down. That's going to disrupt legal.
Yes. So
it's okay.
So
we have a viewer.
Did you like it?
Yes,
I liked it. Okay. And so Mike Mendoza is watching.
So Mike, give me a like, man. Mike.
Yeah.
Don't like any of these guys. So anyway, Jordan Clarkson, Larry Nance, and this other guy are on this podcast with this guy named DJ Montage. And DJ Montage said, "I don't believe in dinosaurs," to which Jordan Clarkson replied, "I don't believe in dinosaurs either." Then he says, "Well, actually, I do. All right, this is going to sound a little crazy. I'm going to take y'all a little to the left. He took us a little to the left, too. All right, so y'all know how we got dogs and stuff, right? This is him talking. DJ Montage said, right, let's hear where you're going. And then he said...
Keep going.
Oh, it's good. Then he said, Clarkson jumped in with both feet. So I think it was bigger people in the world before us. And like the dinosaurs, they were their pets. On a leash, like a pet on a leash. DJ Montage replied, and to which he asked, so how big were these people? Jordan Clarkson's response was, oh, you look at a dinosaur, they got to be 3 times bigger than them.
Oh, my goodness.
3 times bigger than dinosaurs, people who lived on Earth. Now, come on. That's funny.
That
is funny.
That's the equivalent of the flat Earth type thing.
Yeah, well, there's a number of flat Earth people. Kyrie Irving, for example, is a flat Earther.
Man, yeah, that's.
I know that there was a lot of hullabaloo because a particular political actor said to some NBA players, "Shut up and dribble." Right? That's what she said to them, and there were a lot of people who got upset because she said, "Shut up and dribble." I mean, if they're going to say things like that,
then she's
then
right.
she probably has
Pretty good advice.
There's probably some good advice, because if you're going to say that there were people on Earth 3 times bigger than dinosaurs, that's not good.
Yeah, I wonder where he's getting all that lovely information out. I don't know what his source is. Probably Wikipedia. Probably Wikipedia somewhere.
Yeah. This is a good example of why the internet should be shut down.
It reminds
we
me.
are on the
It reminds me.
This is a vote on behalf of no internet.
I'm not sure that might be the best solution for what we're doing.
Well, it's like the Yale University students. This guy went around and asked them if they should get rid of the First Amendment, and they all petitioned. They signed a petition to get rid of the First Amendment, which includes the right to petition.
Yeah.
Okay, so
yeah, where it's like those. They do the Man on the Streets. Leno's done it. A bunch of people have done it. Jimmy Kimmel did it when he did the Man Show years ago. He went on to campuses and did try to get all these women. We're tired of women's suffrage.
Right. Yeah.
If you'd like to see the suffrage of women end, sign this. And they all sign the petition. They're like, yeah, we're tired of that. And they're getting all excited.
Yes. It's just.
There's been multiple people done that.
But it's painful in one sense, and it's funny. It's painful because these guys have a platform, and I'm sure that they're all good guys and they want to do good by people. But when you say silly stuff like that, I mean, it's frightening. It's frightening.
It's one thing to say something is inaccurate. It's another thing to say something that's just a total facepalm.
Yeah.
It's the connection though, is because you see like this happen in groups. Like people do this and they follow into this. It gives new perspective to when you think of things like historical events, the Salem witch trials.
Sure.
And you look at this and you think, what's the group think? What's the mentality that, a kid can come in and say, oh, she's a witch. And then, oh, we all see it. And they're all freaking out because they just all follow.
How was that again?
Like that. So
that's
really
exactly.
Good.
That's Ward in the morning when he gets up and looks in the mirror.
Or his wife was you. Yeah. But anyway, that was. Hey, I've studied history. That's an actual historical reenactment that I just did. So don't downplay that. I can be doing it like that. Anyway, but think of the group mentality, the group think that goes with that. And you think, we're so enlightened today. We could never do something like that. We're so informed, and that's just the general mentality that we think. But when you start to see things like this go on,
and people are serious,
and people are serious, and then people get online. Yeah, he's right, and all this just following whoever the perceived leader person is without thinking about it. Even Facebook posts where people just post these stories and they're like, "Oh, I'm so outraged," and I'm like, "Dude, that's a joke. You realize this was a joke?" And somebody's like, "Well,
Babylon
that doesn't matter because even if it was, it's still outrageous."
Oh yeah, Snopes fact checking. The Babylon Bee when they said that CNN has a new big washing machine to spin, the rinse and spin or something to that effect. Yeah. How could you fall for that? I mean, that's terrible.
It's a joke. It's like it's when the Onion, which was one before Babylon Bee, the secular version, when it turns like real news, is all.
There's been some senators that have quoted the Onion
and not knowing it.
And I realize, oh, look what happened here. And they come out and say, and it's like, oh, man. And they go, oh, it's just bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just when we've lost discernment.
Another reason we need to get rid of the internet. So go ahead.
No, you just click again. Stop arguing for that. I'm only sure. And Ward will begin by himself refusing to do anything on the internet ever again.
No. I'm not getting rid of it for me. It's for everybody else. Isn't that usually how it goes?
Then who would watch you?
Well,
maybe not different than mine. No.
Same. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, it's so wild. That is it. So, I don't know if there's another story you guys have. I'll start with one, though, kind of jump off that. Because we talked about it a little bit. My original thought for this story, though, is how, the question is, we all do stuff with philosophy, and part of this off-the-cuff premise is that bringing worldview and philosophy and theology into bear of like current life things, issues that are going on. But a lot of people like philosophy, why does that even matter? Who needs philosophy? And a lot of scientist people who've given into this idea of scientism. That, science is the only way. Well, if you can't show me the empirical evidence that XYZ happened, then I don't believe it.
Right.
Even though history isn't subject to empirical methodologies, logic, the laws of logic, those things aren't subject to that. So there's ways to know truth outside of it. But still, that mentality of, if it's not...
You can't confuse some people with facts.
Yeah, exactly. If it's not quantifiable. So I like this story originally because I think it demonstrates on a, has nothing to do with theology or spirituality or anything. It's just on a very practical level why philosophy matters. So in this story... I
could use that for my paper. Go ahead.
I know. Yeah, you could use this. You could look at it. I'll give this to you after, and you can quote it. I found this fabulous.
So this is how you're doing your paper.
This is exactly right.
Or you could just reference this video
for research.
As a research, you could say, as Dr. Miller observed at 4 minutes into this episode 5. I mean, you could source this as a quote,
right?
Because it would be a high quality source.
It would be high quality.
Yeah. And if you deny that as a quality source,
another reason. That's 3 reasons to get rid of the internet.
No, it's reasons to keep it. So anyway, the title of this is from Quartz magazine, and it's a little online deal. But the title of it is the Trolley Problem. But the big headline is: philosophers are building ethical algorithms to help control self-driving cars.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so we kind of briefly went into this, and one of our viewers, one of our many, was saying, if you're watching now, you can click like to this because you had an impact. Saying we don't disagree enough. And so there was some disagreement between Leroy and I as we started talking about this. So I sort of saved. I held back my vehemence and anger at his foolishness.
Okay, all right.
Just so I could see him today.
My impudence.
His impudence too close to me.
Well, I want to see the fight, so I'll get out of the way.
You don't have to. We're just going right over the top.
Oh, okay.
We'll just make sure we...
I don't want to hinder it, though.
It'd be like one of those guy fights where they... No, hold me back.
That's right.
So anyway,
let's turn into blood sport here. I want to see you guys go at it.
This could be good.
Yeah.
So the idea, of course, self-driving cars. This week in the news, the first pedestrian was killed by a self-driving car. And now I think it's Honda, or one of them, or Nissan, backed out of their research now already. Like, we're not going to research them anymore. One of them did this week. It doesn't matter. They'll get back into it later.
Yeah, when no one's watching.
Yeah, when no one's watching, they'll be back into it later. But what was interesting is they dealt with this, cars. So as they're driving around, how does the self-driving car without a driver make a decision when it's an ethical decision when confronted with a situation that drivers are always confronted with? A little kitten runs across the road, and then there's pedestrians over here. Do you brake? Do you swerve? What do you do in those situations?
Now, we would say, just to give people that are listening some reference, we would say, of course you hit the kitten, but there has to be a rule written, as you said, for the car to make that determination.
Yeah, and they say that, which is really neat in this article, is they say that this is a real-life philosophical problem, often known as the trolley problem, that they are trying, as one example, they're trying to solve. So it says, if they give the example, if there's a truck, for those not familiar, if there's a truck, crash ahead, and only options are to swerve into the swerve into the you swerve and hit it, or swerve off a cliff, how do you respond? Well, as a human, we've often not thought about those necessarily, but in a moment we make that split decision and our brains kick in. But a car can't make that decision until you tell it, how do you make that decision? And so that's what these guys who are coming up with the algorithms, they're like $500 million, $556,000 grant they have, that they're working with all these
million, not
550 million. What did they say?
1,000.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, 550.
That's not $500 million.
Oh, sorry, 556,000.
Okay, so
I'm sorry,
half a million.
Half a million is what I should have said. $500,000 grant from the National Science Foundation to figure this out, and they're looking at they get different philosophers, utilitarian people, all from all different moral positions,
right?
And then they're just sort of hashing out all these different scenarios.
Utilitarian meaning what works for the most people.
Yeah, what works for the most people, what works for the situation. So, like, this question is, so if you have a perfect duty to protect yourself from harm, what are the implications of that for this self-driving car? How do you do that? Some ethicists, they say, would consider it acceptable for the vehicle to swerve in defense to avoid a crash, even if it puts a pedestrian's life at risk.
Like a 4-year-old girl.
Yeah, so this lady that was hit today,
or a boy.
Some ethicists might say, well, okay, that's fine, it hit that gal, but it preserved the life of the driver.
Right.
Okay. So we look at it as bad. Oh, a pedestrian was killed. But the car has to know what is the right moral decision.
And the car is actually not making the decision. The programmers are making the decision for the car, for that person.
Yeah, but ahead of time, through an algorithm, through a program.
And our argument is
it's not live.
So at the same time, let's say that a grandparent's driving down the road, is in that situation, they see their grandchild there, the grandparent would, necessarily probably choose, I'll hit the vehicle and not my grandchild. Mm-hmm. But the programming says, no. I want to hit the child and not the accident and preserve the grandparent's life.
Does it know the age of the driver?
Right.
Does the car
the relationship between the two?
Here it is. It doesn't take into account altruism. What is this
exactly?
What is the story?
Well, I think that's what they're trying to get to. They're not trying to do one.
But here's the deal. There's a story. I think it's late 1970s, early 1980s. A plane crashes in New York. Water's freezing. 2 parents and their handicapped daughter. The 2 parents drown while saving their handicapped daughter. So, in other words, the parents die so that the daughter can be saved by keeping her up above water. Does the car make those kind of decisions?
Well, and there you go. What algorithm is acceptable? Because some would say, well, the handicapped person has less value.
Yes, value. That's right.
Without parents to take care of her, she'd be a drain on society. Mm-hmm. So therefore, she should die.
She should die rather than the parents. Yeah.
And there are people, moral ethicists like Singer.
So what do you say?
Well, this is where.
What do you say?
He's the one that said this was a stupid idea.
It is.
It's not a stupid idea.
What's a stupid idea?
Well, the whole question. There's no way I'm getting in the car.
Turning an algorithm.
Oh, so you think the whole thing's a bad idea?
Well, yes. Okay. But what's what I'm getting at? I'm not getting in the car and letting the algorithm that some guy programmed, and I don't even know. What
if there's a switch? I'm sorry. Go ahead. What if there's a switch to let you turn off?
Well, then there's no self-driving car then.
No, it's self-driving until it gets to a situation and it goes, uh-oh. And then you need to do something.
Yeah, but that doesn't work for... Okay, so I told him this. I said, well, you all think... He thinks, it's terrible idea for self-driving cars.
Right.
But look at us. What about us folks that are visually challenged or impaired? And so, I
got bicycles, right?
I'm concerned about the day that, I won't be able to get my driver's license.
Sure.
Because... I've had family with my neurological condition that they've never been able to legally drive. I'm supposed to restrict nighttime driving. I'm restricted on some nighttime driving. There's certain, I don't like to. I really avoid driving rainy situations because some of my vision is not so good. So I'm like, I'll just avoid that. If locally where I'm comfortable, I'm still okay. But there could be a time where it says no, you can't do this. I can't get my license at all to drive. So for me to have a job where I come and have to drive to my work,
have some autonomy,
have some sense of autonomy, I would. The self-driving cars for me are like GPS. For me was a miracle invention because I never drove anywhere new by myself.
You couldn't read the signs.
Because I couldn't read the signs.
Right. Yeah.
No.
Right.
So when I remember when I got a first GPS. and TomTom. This episode brought to you by TomTom. But I mean, I had a meeting, and I was for pastoral visits that I was doing when I was working as a church planter guy, and I was like, they had their home address. I would have never met somebody at a home address. I'd say, well, let's meet at a public place, or hospital visits. I didn't go to new hospitals. I wouldn't do hospital visits not because I didn't care, but because I'd have to go to a different hospital I've never been to. I just wouldn't drive there. Mm-hmm. But all of a sudden, I could visit people in their homes. I could do hospital visits because I had a GPS to help me navigate. So while Leroy says, "Who cares about Joe? I don't care about him."
It's a common theme here at the seminary.
Self-driving cars.
That's not what I said. What I said was that every time you get in the car, you're going to have to sign a waiver.
Waivers have no value.
Well, you say that they have no value.
Are you willing to chauffeur me around?
I am not willing to chauffeur you around. But
driving this thing.
Should everyone else potentially be put at risk so that you can drive to work?
That's a great question.
Well, everyone's at risk anyway when I drive to work.
Yeah. No, when you can't drive. The issue is when you can't drive. That's what you're talking about. Because right now you can drive. When you can't drive, should everything else be put at risk? Cater to
no. How many older people have driver's licenses that shouldn't drive? You could put them in a self-driving car that might be safer than some elderly drivers who want that sense of autonomy.
Well, those are all good questions.
Yeah, they are.
So it mitigates. This self-driving cars could mitigate some of that. But
adding another,
right.
And so now
changes it, but it could mitigate it as well and make it lesser.
Maybe, but that's part of.
Don't know that.
Yeah,
he's just not going to give in.
This last week we found out.
Yeah.
No, we found out that it happened. How many people get killed otherwise by regular?
But see, that's not the question. We're really talking specifically about the self-driving car and its efficacy.
And by self-driving, do we mean there's no steering wheel for the person can't take over?
Actually, this Uber car, there was a driver because this was actually one of those cars that are set up. There is a driver who is in the car who could override it. They have their own pet, like a driver safety car, one of those cars that drivers ed teachers use.
Right.
The Uber driver, there was a driver in that car. They also didn't act in time to stop, so it actually wasn't a purely autonomous car.
Okay.
So it was not autonomous.
Right. But
so why not blame? Do you drive the car?
The whole question is.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure if there was.
The whole question is, does the
there
value?
Are sure because I just told you.
No. What I mean is, I'm not sure if there's if the person was actually guilty of something or not. I mean, were they just looking at their phone and not caring, and therefore that's a problem. Were they paying attention that the system failed, where they couldn't take over properly? That's a different issue.
Well, I would say if I were the family of the person who was killed, I would want to know who programmed the algorithms into the car. That's what I would want to know. The current ones into the car. And I would want to, because they're the ones ultimately responsible for how the car responds. And ultimately, if you get in the car that is self-driving, you're putting your life at risk.
Keep going.
In that situation. You're
taking on that responsibility.
Exactly.
I think so. I don't think you can put it off to just the Uber, or not Uber, but sorry, it wasn't Uber. But you can't just put it off on these other people.
Right.
So,
well, what if, and I think this came up in a conversation Leroy and I were having. What if you could, because you have different kinds of moral ethicists, moral approaches. Mm-hmm. So they're going to try to come up with all these and solve those. Well, that's impossible. So should there be in these self-driving cars your little touchscreen, and you get to pick what your moral ethic is?
Exactly.
A la carte. So, I pick my utilitarian
I pick me
ethical system. Right. I pick the self-sacrificing. I would rather die first than hurt anybody else moral system.
Right.
So should they have a moral menu system in the car that each driver must select?
And if they did that, and then that person survives and kills a little child or whatever because they chose me first over anybody else, now you have evidence of that happening. Then they can be taken to court and sued for all their work. Okay,
well, then people, at least that would actually be more honest and correct, because there's people that are driving now that are utilitarians,
right?
And they're above everybody else.
They're using that ethic.
And they kill somebody, and they say, "Well, it wasn't that. Oh, I just couldn't respond in time." But really, they could have. They just said, "No, me, not her."
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, but speeding up really gave it away. That's not the case.
But it's an interesting question, because we're farming more of our decisions off to artificial intelligence, so to speak. We're giving machines the ability to choose for us,
And the internet.
And the internet.
Another number 4. No, but no, which is the problem.
And that's a problem, and it's not one I think that isn't easily solved, given the fact that you have a large segment of the people that even deny the whole possibility of morals, right? You have a large segment of people who haven't really thought out what their moral approach to the world ought to be, and it's a very interesting question, and it's one I don't think that we're going to be free from going forward.
Yeah. Well, here's another scenario this one poses, which I think adds a whole other layer to this. It says here, for example, if you're in a car and it's programmed to swerve to avoid a pedestrian.
Right.
So even if it puts the driver at risk. So say that's the moral choice that the algorithm has for the car. Well, what if you know that, so Leroy's in his car driving down and you know that the car will swerve, endangering him to save you. What if you intentionally step in front of that car? You actually are trying to kill him by stepping in front of the car.
Oh, there you go. Right.
And then you say, "Oh, I just accidentally, I didn't see the car
and
coming."
you can't put that past people.
But
that's right.
But if people knew that was always the choice the car were to make,
then now you have a means of.
Then you could actually have a means of killing somebody,
right,
and getting away by stepping in front of the car.
Right. Oh, my bad.
They bring this up as these moral ethicists, so this is not just a fantasy. They're like, what about that? How do you? Right. How does a car know?
What if a gunman comes out there and you want to actually run that person over to take them out because they're going to shoot somebody, but now you can't.
Carjacking.
Now you can't.
Somebody's going to carjack you, so you'd be stopping for the carjacker. Oh, here, take the car. Let me unlock the doors for you.
And let's say it automatically opens the doors. Oh, hey, everybody, welcome in.
These are serious questions, which is why I say I will not be driving one of those, because I think I have to be responsible unless I'm going blind and I need someone to drive for me, right?
Yeah. Then it's okay?
Then it's okay, right?
No.
Of course it isn't. Of course it isn't. You see how foolish that is, though? But of course it isn't.
Yeah.
Of course it isn't.
Sorry, I probably vote
we have to
for
vote,
you
to vote against
be driven somewhere, so...
See, well, then what I hear is you saying you're volunteering to drive me somewhere.
That's you did not hear that. I did not hear that.
What I heard.
Did you hear that?
It is recorded here on this day, March 21st.
See that? All my likes are there. Look at that.
All those likes for me.
All those likes are for me.
I think what we heard is we just don't really want you working here.
Exactly.
Well, I just thought this was a fascinating story.
Yes. It is an excellent story.
Because I've never actually, until I read this, didn't even contemplate as deeply as it needs to be the moral decisions that have to go into the technology.
Right.
So not only proves that philosophy matters and ethics matter, which Ward Crocker, they do, because Ward Crocker is fond of saying he hates ethics.
Yes.
Everyone, you've heard him say this.
The person who has none.
He says, I dislike ethics.
Yes.
He said that.
But isn't this also...
Just like that. I don't believe in ethics, is what he said
exactly
on many occasions.
That's a direct quote.
But isn't this
the
also...
classes you teach on ethics don't matter. Those are insignificant. Pretty much.
We're not into the real stuff.
Yeah, let's teach a real class.
Exactly. Isn't this also evidence, though, of the necessity of moral values and duties in everyday life?
Yeah,
and their objective nature.
And their objective nature.
Yeah.
It is a necessity.
If moral relativism is actually true,
then why
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter whether we have ethicists or not.
No.
Who needs an ethicist?
Yeah. Or who cares what the self-driving car does?
Yeah, who cares?
Well, exactly.
Or just drive over that person.
If there's no absolute truth, then who cares what they program the car?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You should be able to have,
whether it's a
menu system or just if everyone's forced to go with one car that makes the choices for them, then you're saying there is absolutely one ethical moral system. Mm-hmm. If you choose to let everyone pick their moral system, like option 1, kill the old lady. Option 2, preserve the old. It's like you've got to go through.
But in that sense, you're now holding people accountable for their particular ethical and moral.
Exactly the problem. So the first one concedes the issue that there's an absolute moral that we're going to hold everyone to. The second one says, no, choose your own, but then they're going to be held legally liable for it. So you're saying that there is an absolute that we can hold you to if you chose poorly.
Isn't it interesting that as soon as we get down to the bottom line and people's dollars are affected, we really know where they're standing at?
Well, and it's the other issue, too, that this lady that got hit, I mean, it's tragic. But part of me says, why is it tragic? I mean, you have to ask that.
Right.
So in other words, yes, it's bad that a self-driving car hit somebody and killed somebody. I, as a Christian, believe that's terrible because I see the inherent value in all human life, and I think that's tragic that person died.
What's that grounded in?
The Christian worldview. God created us in Genesis 1. God created us in His image
and likeness.
In image and likeness, and we have this value to us. But for the other person who denies that, I mean, if it is, in other words, is the only controversy that a self-driving car did it? So if another human being would have done it, would there be this controversy? So do we really even care about the person that was killed, or we just care that there's pocketbooks impacted, and we're blaming technology's bad, but humans kill humans all the time. They don't care. So it brings up all this other moral issue of what are we really upset about? Upset that a self-driving car did it, or that somebody actually died? I don't think people are upset that somebody died. It's like, it's just a self-driving car did it, which is another tragic thing.
Well, she was the first person in the history of the human race
to
be killed by a self-driving car, other than like the driver, because some guy who was a driver did.
Yeah.
Or, and someone just associated with it.
Well, third party. Yeah.
Right, third party.
Because that other guy was killed
there was a driver.
in his own car 2 years ago now.
Right, yeah. There was
like
that.
a Tesla self-driving car.
Interesting. Something like that. Yeah.
Well, here's another question. So if you get to choose your moral system, if you're a PETA fan, that is not, by the way, people eating tasty animals, which the guy used to own the website that said PETA sued him and took the site from him.
Really? Oh.
People for the ethical treatment of animals sued the guy that had PETA.org, which is people eating tasty animals. They had recipes up there.
Yeah.
And they sued him and won. Anyway, but if you're a PETA guy, guy or gal, and you say, well, human and animal life equal value.
Right.
And you see a dog in the road and little Timmy on the road. Little 5-year-old Timmy, and there's the dog. Well, they might say, kill little Timmy because I think dogs are more cute.
Right. Or cannot make any decisions. Somebody made a decision for little Timmy to be out on the road. They need to handle that. They need to deal with that. This dog doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah, maybe that's their thinking. Poor innocent dog. Timmy, he's old. He's 17 years old.
Yeah.
Well, he should have known better. That dog had been, the dog was the clear.
Harambe.
Right. So is
Harambe.
that
Why should Harambe? Why should we shoot Harambe?
Yeah.
That little boy's parents knew better.
Yeah.
Should have never let that boy get in the cage with Harambe. So why did Harambe? People are making that argument.
Yeah. So, they would make that decision live, but which decision do we program into this autonomous self-driving car? See, so that's got to be decided by somebody. So it's not gonna be as easy to get these self-driving cars on the road. I think after reading this and talking about this,
this tragic event has really brought that to the surface, because I don't think most people are talking about that at all.
No,
they're just like, oh, hey, self-driving cars, it'll be really cool.
Yeah,
and not
which it
realize,
will be for those that need it. There's a lot of reasons why it could be.
There could be.
You guys deny them,
but we're not denying that it wouldn't be cool. But being able to get a system like that to work without, as we're pointing out, without sacrificing, little Timmy or whomever else on the road.
It's a challenge.
But,
I'm hoping this will solve for me, actually, too, one of my age-old questions that I've had ever since I was in my engineering stuff. And I don't have a good physics answer to this question. I have never run the numbers. I think I'd need a complex model, a computer model to figure it out, to calculate this. But the rough physics of this goes this way. You guys know that when there's a drunk driver and they hit like the non-drunk people, you know how the
drunk driver is relaxed.
Drunk driver always, being relaxed is usually the thing people say. He's relaxed so he doesn't die, but the people that get impacted die.
Much, yeah.
That's not the only reason that I postulate. Well, because in physics, we know that force is equal to mass times acceleration.
That's right.
So if you have a car driving 70 and he never brakes because he's drunk, and then you got this dad with his kids in the back and his wife, and he sees, oh my goodness, there's a guy. They slam on their brakes. So they're slowing down. So they have a less force moving forward because their car is decelerating. So there's less force in the car. So when you have a car moving with greater force, impacting something of a lesser force, more of that energy is transferred into the slower moving car.
Okay.
So the energy is transferred into the car that's slower moving. That's the rough physics of it, And you can kind of see that. Like I've seen pictures of accidents where the other drunk person's car seems to be less damaged. At least, again, this is very superficial analysis. So those that are really smart in this beyond my limited engineering skills, you can
put in the comments.
Yeah, put that in the comments.
Just how off he is.
But I'm just saying that's just a gross observation of like what I've
Yeah.
seen in a few pictures. So no non-scientific study.
Yeah.
But I've always wondered if I see a drunk driver coming at me, if I would be better served to hit the accelerator than hit the gas.
I'm disclaiming that. I'm kidding.
No, and I'm not saying that would be but I've always wondered about that.
No,
from a
here's what
purely
not all views on this show are shared by everybody who's on the show.
Nor do we endorse that as an
having been in multiple accidents.
You're a bad driver.
No, actually, never found at fault for any of those accidents. Okay. But the key thing, believe it or not, is how much you're offset from the impact. So if you have head on, head on is somebody's going to die. 15 degrees over increases your chance to live exponentially.
Exactly. So turning at an angle.
Turning it at an angle increases because you're dissipating.
It allows
the force
energy to be dissipated throughout the frame of the body.
Right.
Which is another issue as well, because you tend to get when people hit head on, it's usually the guy coming across the road, so it's creates weird angles often for the person.
I ran into a palm tree once, believe it or not.
Which was not your fault.
Which was totally my fault.
You were never found. You just said you were never found at fault for any of them.
Wow.
Ran into a palm tree once. I've fallen asleep at the wheel.
Definitely click dislike to that.
I've fallen asleep at the wheel, and here's what I remember happening.
So there was one accident.
This is the same accident. My tires jumped the curb. That's when I woke up.
Yeah.
So sleeping.
I'd fallen asleep.
Not his fault, though.
But still not his fault.
The tires hit the curb.
It was the medicine.
And the car jumped over the curb. And when I hit the palm tree, fortunately at an angle, but I will remember this to the day that I die. You know how tough your steering wheel is?
Yeah.
That thing folded over in my hands like this, all the way back.
And you saw it doing it, right? It was such a slow motion.
No, I didn't. I could see it happening like, wow.
That's what I'm saying. You could see it because your mind slows down.
Fortunately, I was wearing a baseball hat because my head almost went through the windshield. And I was seatbelted in.
So you were saved by a baseball hat.
Well, saved from real serious scarring by a baseball hat.
Being cut up. Yeah.
I was going to say because the hat wouldn't really stop.
But fortunately, it didn't hit in the center. It didn't hit the center. It literally, hit the side of the car, hit the one half of it, and the car spun around the palm tree, broke the palm tree in half. I was going at it pretty tough. But I'll never forget that. So just 15 degrees off is way better than head on.
Yeah, which I don't know. So maybe when they figure out these self-driving cars, they can tell me. Yeah. I want to find the algorithm. What is the physics of what would that car do? Because they'd have to calculate all these, not just the moral issues, but the physical issues of two cars coming at each other. Do we swerve at what angle does the self-driving car swerve? Mm-hmm. So technically, it could also save lives by calculating the risk. Point of impact of what would be the ideal point of impact for each of the vehicles. And
I just think that the more we talk about this, the exponential risk to the company who develops that. I mean, the risk to the company grows exponentially. The more we talk about it, every little thing. How come you didn't? People will say, how come you didn't calculate, making the car brake at a particular speed?
And how about this? What if a vehicle all of a sudden comes across the side of the road and you realize, there's no one in it? And so if you're going to swerve and head on to somebody else, it's better to hit this vehicle. You can tell there's no one in that vehicle, but the vehicle can't calculate that.
Not necessarily. Well, they might be able to. They should be able to. That's they've got cameras. They have cameras.
But do they necessarily? Can they tell? What if they're tinted windows?
Tinted windows don't mean nothing. We know who's inside.
You can see a little bit. You can see a little bit, but what if you can tell it is? And I don't know, and can't. Always
lay down for us, Leroy.
Oh, no, good.
Well, they're lightly tinted, but you can tell that there's no driver in the driver's seat. There's no one in the vehicle.
Ford didn't catch that.
I know. He was very focused on being serious.
Serious. Some of us has to be.
Somebody has to be so thoughtful and serious, and he chose to be that today.
Ward, what do you have?
Thoughtfulness and seriousness.
I think he meant a news story. I think he was trying to transition us on.
Yes.
I know.
I'm not sure you knew.
Remember last time I talked about an eye gouging story?
Uh-oh.
A what story?
Eye gouging story.
Eye gouging story.
Eye gouging. This is an eye. Do you mean that like metaphorically? This is such an eye gouging story.
I mean this literally. This young lady, this poor gal.
There's a picture of it?
Yeah.
With her eyes gouged out, or
no. It's a South Carolina young lady. She was out in public, and while in a drug-induced high, said she believed the drugs were bringing her closer to God. And during her unfortunate state, it got worse. She's around 20 years old. She ended a relationship, and that really ended.
So she had a
bad
relationship.
She smoked marijuana, took Xanax to cope, had a mental breakdown with a bipolar disorder.
So she's bipolar, on marijuana, with Xanax, maybe drinking. I'm guessing that's some sort of a dangerous combination. I'm not a medical doctor.
Yes.
I am a doctor, but I play one on off the cuff. It seems like a bad combo.
Gouged out basically both eyeballs, and she
just like jammed her fingers in
her thumbs. She pushed. So I pushed my thumb.
Oh, don't explain that.
Yeah, okay. What's the matter?
Well, you don't want to give anybody ideas how it's done. You don't want to.
The suggestion is not to do this. I bring this up because, and people saw this happen. Churchgoers did.
This happened in church?
No, churchgoer. There were some church people across the street, terrified churchgoers. Across the street, terrified churchgoers.
So she was across the street from a church.
Yeah, watched on. Now she's talking about wanting to get closer to God, and these drugs or whatever. And I could see people saying, "Look, we just need to bleach society of religion, because here's another.
Yeah, this religion's fault.
Right. This is where religion will take you. I mean, even in a drug-induced state, trying to get closer to God, and they'll try.
Yeah, clearly not the drugs or not the anything else. It's clearly the religion that was the problem.
Which, yes, exactly. Which brings up the blame game, even for those who get angry about things like this. I mean, my sadness for this young lady. I mean, obviously, this is not what she intended to do, and it's a very unfortunate state for her. But for others who would use this as anger, like, where was God in all this? Well, how would you answer that question? I have a few answers myself. But
I'm thinking they would need a Hollywood exorcist.
Yes. I was going to bring that up. I was just going to bring that up.
Episode 1, off the cuff.
You'll know what that joke is.
Yes.
The Hollywood exorcist. That's exactly.
I think that's made its way to every episode.
Exactly what's going on.
It lives.
It lives. That is exactly. Listen, the exorcist would have prevented her from gouging her eyes out.
Which is not a laughing matter.
It's not a laughing matter.
The seriousness of that story
was no laughing matter.
Yeah, where was God when this was going?
So what about God? How could he let something like this happen?
I heard a story once.
I was like, "Don't do it."
Yes, I heard a story once, and the story talked about how this boulder was on top of the hill, and these people were in church below the hill where the boulder was, and the boulder ran down the hill and ran through the church and killed.
Had little legs.
Rolled down the hill and killed a number of people in the church. And the people in the story proclaimed or exclaimed the same question: where was God when all this happened? Why doesn't God prevent a boulder from running through a church and killing a number of people? And the person who asked that question asked this. He said, what kind of world do you want to live in? Do you want to live in a world where absolutely nothing happens? Or do you want to live in a world where something happens? And if you choose to live in a world where absolutely nothing, particularly nothing bad happens, how would you then know, he asked, what the good was? Is that similar to what you're asking?
It's similar. To that response, I would say, I think it's possible to know what good is without having bad, though. Mm-hmm. Going back to the Garden of Eden, where Adam and Eve, prior to sinning, lived in a perfect environment,
they knew the good.
And they could have they embraced, understood, and knew what the good was. Mm-hmm. So I don't think that the bad is necessary for the good to be known.
Yeah, I've heard an analogy for that because I thought about that years ago. It's one of the atheist dude wrote, why do bad things happen to good people, and then the Christian dude wrote the response, why do good things happen to bad people? And so that debate I remember came up a long time ago. Just you need these bad things to know what good is. And the analogy I heard that I think makes most sense is, while it's true that you can't have shadows. Like if you're outside in the sun, you can't have a shadow without the sun. You can still have the sun without the shadows. Mm-hmm. And so I think we can know good. We can know like what's right without having seen what is wrong. I don't think morally that those would be necessary. So you don't have to know moral evil to know or appreciate what's good.
You don't have to know moral evil in order to appreciate what's good.
Yeah.
Right. Or even know
that you could have a life full of all good with no bad happening, and it would be a fulfilling life.
Right.
Ultimately, we will have that.
And we will have that exactly someday.
Exactly. Revelation 21.
This life,
yeah.
We will have that in eternity as those who believe in Jesus Christ.
But this side of heaven, right?
But you were
this side of the fall.
Yeah, but this side of the fall, you did hint on or bring up the issue of what kind of life would that be? I think what people are asking, because where only good things happen. I think the problem with that is they don't realize what they're asking. What they want is they want their free will without consequences. Mm-hmm. So what they're asking for is, I want free will, but I don't want to be accountable for. I don't want anything bad to happen as a result of it. I just want to be able to live as I please. And that is not a moral possibility, because as we please can be a problem. And that's what people often do. Now, as far as the boulder goes, it's not people living as they please. These people are apparently trying to live to please God. Sure. This is the effect of sin on the earth, and accidents happen.
But I think my point was that we don't live in a world where we're free from tragedy.
Yeah,
we don't live in a world where we're
because of love, actually.
Right. We don't live in a world where we're free from tragedy.
Right.
And to want a world that is free from tragedy is to want a whole different world than what we have.
Yeah. Well, and I would say that longing for that world is, I would say to somebody, your instinct is right. If I was talking, I say your instinct is right to want a world that way is right, and it's good. And actually, we have the hope of the world through Jesus Christ. What He's done on the cross, His death and resurrection on the cross, make that world possible.
Mm-hmm.
Not this side of heaven,
but not this
side.
Not right now.
Not right.
Possible.
This side of heaven, we have to deal with 20-year-old teens
because of love.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Because God would choose to have as many people enter that ideal world you're talking about. Because God wants them, He has to allow for free moral choice, which also means, as Ward said, because that sin impacts the whole world. He can't just selectively say, well, I got to stop this hurricane, or I got to stop that boulder, right. Because God has chosen to allow the world in which we live freely function the way He has, until those who will come to know Him will accept Him.
Let's take this just a little bit further, since you brought up the gouging story. Goodness gracious.
Well,
let's take this a little further. Could God have brought in or instantiated a world where you could have everybody saved, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody saved, and still people freely choose Him. All those people freely choose Him.
Could He bring in a world in which they're all saved and all freely choose Him? I would say yes. Mm-hmm. But that would be a minimalistic world. I would say maybe one or two people.
Right.
Not with billions of people.
I would say yes, He did. And there was only two of them to start with, and they still screwed it up.
Mm-hmm.
No, He did.
That's why I mean one or two. And that's it, though. But that's it. That's all you have.
Yeah, but He did.
But even they...
Well, even they already screwed up. So that scenario doesn't work.
But it's impossible where everyone is free to choose, and they actually do it. I would say it has to be minimal. And one reason I say that is this. In this world, when people get saved, one thing that happens why people get saved is because they do go through a tragedy. Mm-hmm. And you remove that tragedy from their life, odds are they're not willing to bow their knee before Jesus Christ.
Tragedies bring perspective.
Right.
They do.
Not salvation, but perspective.
They make you reflect.
That's a good way of putting it. That's a very. You can like that comment. That was a very good way of putting
it.
That's right. And that to play off that original question. So I said, you can know what is good without knowing evil. You don't have to know evil to know what is good. That the other side of that is there is a human condition, though, that is true, that often we don't appreciate what is good until something bad happens. Mm-hmm. That's different than the knowing, though.
Right.
So
no, that's good.
So when you bring that up, there's two sides to that. So I stand by what I said earlier. I think you can know what is good. You don't need bad to define good. But it's true on an individual level that often we don't understand or appreciate what is good until something bad happens. And there's a 2-level answer to that.
There's I forget who did the survey, and what they did was they surveyed a room full of men. This one particular room.
Sexist.
Yes,
Sexist survey.
But they did the survey, and they asked, and these are older men, and they asked, how many of you, have walked, with the Lord since your childhood, right? Maybe 1 or 2 guys raised their hand. But the overwhelming majority of the guys did not begin to walk with the Lord until after a tragedy. Something brought them back to church. Something gave them perspective. Something said, the way I'm living my life is not.
For many, it wasn't until after they were married. Oh, wait a second. That came out completely wrong.
Oh, Suzanne, did you hear that? Did you hear that?
Oh.
Wow, I put my foot in that.
Oops. Yes.
I didn't mean it like that at all.
Marky, I would never, ever, ever say anything like that.
To your face.
So
what you said...
No, don't even try it.
Well, you brought up the story the other day. You said
no way. No, Marky, I would never say that.
He didn't say that.
Notice how Ward is just sitting there being quiet.
This is
yes.
Well, he knew the Lord before he was married, so he can't say that. That's
I know. It's just like
so did I. So I can't say. I just meant for some people that it comes after. Not that that's a tragic event, but it's one that's
an event.
But it's one that changes their perspective.
Listen to the spin, man. You got a no spin washing machine in here. Oh my gosh.
Sometimes when I was younger, and still now apparently, I like to sort of dig a hole just to see if I can get out of it. It was a test of my wisdom,
You're still doing that.
How far can I dig before I can't get out?
How many minutes do we have left?
Well, I wanted to finish up on that real quick.
We have 8 minutes left.
All right. Because part of the issue is, where was God in all this? And so an incident like this, for instance, or drunk driving accidents, so there's a few of them. This doesn't apply to all of them. But part of it is, I hope, God was involved, not in the way that people are looking for, but involved, like, don't do drugs. Mm-hmm. Doing drugs is not the wisest way of living life. Hopefully parents said something about that. Medical doctors say something about that. The government says something about that.
Kids at home, don't do drugs.
Hopefully
Joe said something about that.
Hopefully some friends, and she was old enough, 20 years old, to be able to choose good friends who would help her not do stuff like that. There was a lot of things that common sense says don't do stuff like this, right? Especially if you're depressed or whatever. There's just a lot of common sense and a lot of means of saying, God setting.
It's funny you say that, because we had a friend of one of my sons who there was a party going on that he was invited to. My son was invited to, and my son didn't think much about it. It's like he's like, oh man, I'll go. But his friend, who's not a believer but is a really nice young guy, he had texted my wife and said, there's going to be drinking at this party, and she's like, no, we didn't know, and my son Zachary didn't know either, and he's like, and she's like, well, thanks for telling us. He's like, yeah, he's like, I've had too many friends, he's like, that have gone and gone drinking and decide they liked it, and then their whole life gets screwed up. These are high school kids. He's like, their life gets screwed up. He's like, I wouldn't want to see that happen to Zachary. He said, because he's my best friend and I wouldn't want to lose him.
That's awesome.
Isn't that interesting though?
That's awesome.
Friends like my wife and I are like, wow, good friends like that.
That's right.
That are looking out for each other.
It's a grace of God.
Such a blessing.
That is. That is awesome.
We weren't going to let him go anyway, even before we knew that. But
Yeah, right.
Now he can have him as a friend now.
But now we're like, aha.
Unless he was just saying that, just so that you're in good graces, because there really wasn't drinking. He just didn't.
He made an ethical
calculation. Excellent point. I blame the scientists, by the way.
Yes.
Because if they could invent drugs that could have you get the high without making you do crazy stuff,
right?
I blame science.
There you go.
Science is at fault.
That's right.
I don't believe in science anymore. Science can't be real, because if it was real, science would have stopped her from doing that.
Bam.
Quick like to that.
Thank you for enjoying or engaging that topic.
So intelligently and so.
No, but seriously, that was a good topic.
All right, Leroy. We have a few minutes left.
Right,
we can at least start it. If we
you get the crumbs
of
the minutes.
This is going to be good. The highest murder rate in decades. The highest rates of robbery and rape. It's no wonder a young man with mental health issues committed a horrendous act. Speaking of
Okay.
Nicholas Cruz, right? No. That was in 1980. Not 2018, 1980. In 1980, the murder rate, murders per 100,000% of the population, was 10.2. If we go on back to more peaceful times, say 1960, 1960 was more violent than 2016. 5.1 murders per 100,000 compared to 5.0. What is going on?
What is it now?
It's 5.0 now.
Okay.
But it's 5.1 in 1960.
So it was a little bit higher in 1960, and then it was 10. It was almost double that in the 80s.
That's exactly right. What can explain the actions of the accused shooter, Nicholas Cruz? What else did Cruz have an unlimited access to that could have had an influence on him?
Guns.
Media. No, social media.
Oh.
Reason number 5 to get rid of the internet.
Guns?
So this is under the article, School Shootings, Teen Suicide, The Hidden Consequences of Social Media. If you are my friend, I've tagged this on my page, so you should probably read it. And they ask a very important...
If you're not his friend, he didn't tag you.
Yeah, didn't tag you. Or you can make me a friend so I can actually grow my social media profile. Just kidding. But
shameless plug.
Shameless plug.
All right.
But they asked a provocative question, or at least they make a provocative statement, which was the real reason that the FBI and local law enforcement didn't connect the dots is because they don't fully understand the new dots of social media. I think it's because they were too busy trying to trap the Trump administration, but that's just my view.
The FBI is distracted with a lot of crazy stuff that, like, let's investigate.
It's insanity. But there's a couple things that I want to say before we end. It's just a few things.
Well, let me interrupt you because we're not going to get through all of this.
Right.
And I think it's worth picking up on several of the themes in this. So, but I want to pick up on already one of the things you said. Not to
shut up,
but if it carries us into the next one, this is where we'll start. Cliffhanger. Tune in next time. I think what you say, I've read some of those stats before, like similar kind of things, but I think it really is instrumental. Just even pause at the first stats you gave, not to let that go by. I don't want to let that blow by. Is that we think, everything's so horrible and corrupt, and
not even close.
Crime, for violent crime, it has declined over this period of time, over the last 20, 30 years. Even violence against cops, I think that's even down.
Even
well.
murders
are
down.
Murders are down. But we have this media environment that one makes it seem like so much more prevalent. Which, by the way, we never talked about it. Proving we're off the cuff. I'm of the bent we should never mention these killer people by name,
right?
Because it gives them part of this thing.
Part of the thing that they really want.
So even in stories, my bent will be that we never mention their names, just say the killer. But anyway, because I think that's part of the problem too, is that so we have media that amplifies these things, whether they like it or not. They're glorifying these people by showing their pictures and their happy little faces when they were at summer camp before they went nuts and started shooting people. But then there's also the moral framework that we don't value life.
Yeah,
that I think. I mean, I had a story here that, and I'll only bring it up because I think we need to carry this on for another time too. Is this little
light of mine
9-year-old?
This
is the 9-year-old wanted a video game controller from his sister, so he shot her in the head.
Oh, jeez.
This is back east. They're sitting
it's insanity.
There. He's 9, she's 13. They're fighting over who gets the controller. He went over to the nightstand and pulled out the gun, the little revolver or whatever it was, and literally shot her right in the back of the head.
That's just
and the police guy is sitting there thinking, in the video game culture, whatever, he's just thinking, well, Second Life, she'll just get up and, shoot, you get more lives and you just revive. And whether he knew that or not, I don't know. But that blurring between reality and non-reality is there. I think those are factors in that.
This one thing about saying, it says the deluge of negative social media can't be ignored when the suicide rates for our children have increased an average of 212% since 2007.
Wow.
Homicides have decreased.
Repeat that fact again.
The deluge of negative social media can't be ignored when the suicide rates for our children have increased on average 212% since 2007.
Wow.
It says ultimately that this is how people end up, social media and things they see ultimately is their view of reality is warped based on the things that they see on social media.
I think it's why we have to be a positive influence on it. That's why I think we should engage it, not necessarily dismiss it, but engage it. Try to be a positive presence on those things. Why things like this are important because of that very issue. You guys, closing thought, close us out. I'm going to go get ready to show
One thing I was wondering about those stats that you had before about the 10 per 100,000 capita. I was wondering what the stats would be if we remove like the top 4 or 5 most gun control portions of cities in the U.S. Places like Chicago, Detroit, Washington, D.C., and which have the highest crime rate, but they have the strictest gun control laws. If we remove those, what does the stat become?
That's a very interesting question.
So maybe for next time, can you prepare us for that?
Nope.
That'd be great.
All right. Well, that's it. Hey, by the way, we're going to do better because now I know where to put up those comments online. See, look, I could have been showing
those. There we go. Okay.
There's a comment from Mike that came up during the show.
Yes.
On how to show those now.
Okay.
So we can watch those on the cameras.
All right.
So
it's not bad.
Next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday. 2 o'clock next Wednesday.
Yes.
See you guys there. Invite your friends.